in entrepreneurship, business is war. So you have to presume your competitors have lower values than you. Like women-owned companies, a lot of time it's the husband running it, and the wife is just the front face. I didn't know anything. I literally didn't know anything. And a few of them called me out and like, you don't know jack squat. We're the largest network of small business consultants in the world and in the country. And all of our work with entrepreneurs is entirely free. It's at no cost. My name is JJ Raju. I work with Florida Atlantic University, and I work specifically with the Small Business Development Center, also known as the SBDC. And I am specifically under an umbrella program called the APEX Accelerator for government contracting, as well as technology commercialization. The general idea behind that is we're helping people position themselves for government contracting, or if they're also developing a very unique technology and research that the government wants to fund, and they're on the process of commercialization of their product. The Apex Accelerator has two of those focuses for their objectives. Looking forward to meeting everyone.
Diversified Game. Learn how to start, run, and sustain your business.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, as always, I am trying to give you some game, some information that you can actually use outside of everyone telling you they're a multimillionaire who retired their mother, their father, and they did it in government contracting with one contract. Now they have 100 million online. I'm coming and I'm giving you the people who are actually from the organizations who actually educate all of us, if we're wise, on how government contracting works, how we can become better at it. It's nothing you can just jump into and make $1 million. If you're doing that, I'd be very cautious, and I would reach out to my guest today, Chief JJ. We call him a chief, and he's the nicest chief that you're going to meet in the government. He's one of the nicest, I'm going to say the nicest Apex Accelerators, because the only other nice person that I've met at this organization was, they called it PTAC back in the day. So, Sir JJ, welcome to the show from Apex Accelerators, a free program for all of you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's what a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you for coming on and making it so easy. And, in the intro, people heard what you guys do. But what I say is every entrepreneur, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, every entrepreneur should be going to their local PTAC, aka Apex Accelerator, SCORE, and SBA to learn and ask questions to see what you can do for them. Is that something that you want to see every entrepreneur, or are there certain type of entrepreneurs that you want to see?
So we want to see all of them, right? So the idea between the Small Business Development Center is we're here to be a safe, confidential consultant and guidance counselor, so to speak, as you are building your company. And even when you're starting to launch the company, we definitely want to see you. So the SBA is our boss, and they put out a lot of information. So you want to keep track of the Small Business Administration. And then we are their field staff. So we're out here located in many universities around the state of Florida, and we're either in a university or in an economic development agency around the country. We're the largest network of small business consultants in the world and in the country. And all of our work with entrepreneurs is entirely free. It's at no cost. And even better than that, it's confidential. So I always tell people when I meet them, your competitor may be working with us and they're getting that information for free. And then they're having these safe conversations where they're brainstorming on their next moves. And all of that is done confidentially with a Small Business Development Center counselor, or with an Apex Accelerator consultant like myself, who's specifically in the government contracting space. So the answer to your question, Kellen, is yes, yes, yes.
Now, I'm going to go back, you guys, to help you with information later, but I want JJ to let people know and describe his previous experiences with small business in the community, because there's been some people, and I've told him privately, so I'm going to brag about it publicly, that have said JJ is really down for the small business. He helped me many moons ago, and some of those people aren't even here still in South Florida. They've moved to Tampa. But can you talk about your previous experiences in the community and how you even got this role?
You touched my emotion there. You caught me there. So, yeah, I am passionate about small business owners because, my dad built a nonprofit out of our living room, right? And so that's not exactly entrepreneurship, but it's a type of entrepreneurship, which is that you're trying to go after a passion. And so in his case, he was serving his community, he was raising dollars. So, so I was, folding brochures and so on since I was like 8 or 10 years old or 12 years old or something. He had me as free labor. So I grew up because, he went and did his job 8 hours a day. My mom was a nurse, and then he came home and then he worked on his nonprofit in the evenings. So I don't know, he probably did, 14-hour, 12-hour, 16-hour days, right? So I grew up with that kind of vibe. And so, so just so you understand, I came out of school going into elementary education, just teaching kids, right? So I didn't go the route my father had put together, but I ended up over the timeline of my life helping the community after my time in elementary education, and my passion developed around small businesses. I don't know what the connection between teaching and helping small businesses is, but somehow my heart made that connection. And so between Southeast Michigan, particularly the Detroit area, and here in South Florida, from Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach, between these two major markets, I have been focusing on, especially the last 10 to 15 years, on just helping pre-entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs to become small business owners, and then small business owners to then just go after what they're going after. And those 4 stages are very, very critical. And maybe that's where the elementary education comes in, which is that I care about each of those stages of growth because it's personal, it's professional, and it's business. But then since we're on the diversified game, it's also psychological. There's a lot of pieces in there in terms of how you're growing yourself, because before self-employment happens, self-learning is what you initiate, right? We go through public education, we get publicly educated on how to be an employee, right? So the goal is to get a job out of 20 years or 16 years of public education, right? But what's the training? How many years do we put into becoming self-employed, right? 20 years to become employed. But what does it take to be self-employed? You become in my opinion, is you become a completely different species when you are someone who can be self-employed. So my passion has kind of been working with hundreds of pre-entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs, and small business owners over that 15-year period. And so like the timeline is I got recruited. I was an MBA intern working on my MBA. So left elementary education to go after my MBA, got recruited into a business incubator, didn't even know what that was. What's a business incubator? When I asked my the professor who had my internship, and she's like, well, you'll see. So then I fell into this business incubator. It's a facility, a 6th-floor facility on Wayne State University's campus in the city of Detroit, where actually the Corvette was designed. It was an old building that we're refurbishing, and not all 6 floors were built out, and they were just building this program like on the 1st floor and the 6th floor, and they're trying to like rehab the rest of the 6 floors because it's old infrastructure right around the old GM building here in Detroit, or there in Detroit, excuse me. And I just fell in love with these small businesses. We were just jamming into this building because it was flex space. And I didn't know what I was talking about back then. But my professor she picked 2 MBA candidates out of her entrepreneurial class, and she just threw us into the mix to try to help these entrepreneurs. I didn't know anything. I literally didn't know anything. And a few of them called me out and like, you don't know jack squat. And but I was an MBA and I was trying to figure this out, right? And so I became a training manager. So since they were like, okay, he can't do direct consulting, but let him train entrepreneurship. And so then we actually landed 8 portfolios or 8 classes of groups of entrepreneurs who are launching out of this business incubator. The idea is to incubate pre-entrepreneurs into building a venture that they can launch. And so it turned out to be about 8 portfolios, turned about 150 to more companies were built out of that. Not all of them survived, but the idea was to get them moving. From there, I moved to Miami, and I worked on the streets of North Miami and doing business consulting on the street. So I was just in North Miami in the Haitian community and particularly the Black community there that was just vibrant, right? And I was going door to door in small business. Just I was hired by a nonprofit to just help small businesses, and they didn't know how to help small businesses. They hired me to do it, so I was just out there. And I from like the Shishi kind of like business incubator in Detroit, helping these technology companies and mixed retail kind of companies to just being on the street, working with small restaurants, small Haitian bakeries, and just it was just the kind of like divergence and impact to me on how to help it. That turned into really helping people personally and then helping their venture, and then like sitting in their bakery and saying, okay, well, how are you sourcing, what's the equipment, how are you laying out product, right? And then from there, I think I hope the timeline's okay. The the Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council. And if you don't know about the FSMSDC, you should know about the FSMSDC. And this is the largest association under the National Minority Supplier Development Council. They recruited me to certify their companies to become minority business enterprises. And this is how I went from entrepreneurship into supplier diversity. And so the FSMSCC certifies minority business enterprises across not only the state of Florida, but then the NMSDC is in charge of all those associations around the country. And this is where I went from like pre-entrepreneurship, venture tech to on the street retail and on the street businesses in North Miami. Then I started like just dealing with like small businesses that were getting certified, going concerns from every single industry, but they were all minority owned. So they're Black owned, Hispanic owned, Asian owned. And it was phenomenal. So now I was able to kind of like get this experience seeing companies who had jumped into becoming a small business. And these were small businesses and these were mid-market businesses. So the whole gamut was fascinating because things I said to pre-entrepreneurs were not always true with the small businesses at that stage. And I realized each stage of entrepreneurship is different. And then from there, it's a longer story, but to get to the point here, I was recruited into FAU. But prior to that, I actually worked in government. So Palm Beach County, the city of Pahokee, Miami-Dade schools, Palm Beach schools, and I was certifying companies on the government side. So MBEs, SBEs, small business enterprises, MWBEs, minority women business enterprises, and the whole gamut. And then FAU recruited me to just help anybody and everybody who comes through to the SBDC. But from entrepreneurship to supplier diversity, just like direct consulting on the government contracting side is kind of the quick timeline. That's as quick as I can make that. But I hope that's helpful to your audience.
I hope so too, because they have to learn it's not a position that you just apply for typically right. And get in.
Yes.
You have to put a lot of work in. Can you tell the people a rough estimate on how many businesses you've worked with and also how many businesses you've certified throughout your career?
Oh, I've probably certified, I know at the school district, I certified 200 at the minimum. It was only, and then the county, probably another 100. At the FSMSDC, I would probably say that was also about 150. So yes, you're closing in around 500 plus certified companies. And each of these certifications are very, like, they're very similar and they're very different. And so, like, evaluating companies, I also did site visits. So I'd go after I'd review their paperwork, I'd go on site and check whether they were actually a minority owned and minority operated and a minority controlled company, right? So we had to be on site to see that sort of thing. But then I'd look through their financials, their taxes, and make sure that, they weren't a flow through, because what we don't want in that scenario is we don't want a majority Caucasian companies to create a front minority company to then be able to retrieve some of the benefits of minority certification. We want our minority owned communities to take advantage of those certifications. So those controls were in play. So my passion for small business, and then obviously seeing certain realities about American culture, I think supplier diversity was a natural thing for me to kind of be rooting for people, but still, making sure that they were solid businesses. So.
And in today's times of things just getting blended in with families, before coming to Florida, was in Seattle. And it was interesting because you'd hear about, oh man, Caucasian put a black face on it, maybe especially in construction, but sometimes that black face was their husband or their wife. And in Seattle, It could be either one, either time of the day. Have you seen a lot of that where people, like, I've never been approached by a Caucasian or a Chinese company to say, hey, you want to run this company and you own it and we'll run it? Like, have you ever heard or seen a lot of that?
Seen, there's so many ways that process can be broken. And so if it's, so especially like women-owned companies, a lot of time it's the husband running it, and the wife is just the front face, or she's just an administrative role, but he's putting her as CEO, and so that he can kind of continue to compete against his other competitors and come at it from. So, but on the minority-owned side, not only have I seen it, but I've even heard where minority-owned firms will. So I'm afraid, because I don't want to teach the market something. You know what I mean? So let me change that story a little bit. Not change the truth of it, but change it so that I'm not teaching anyone to break the system. But scenarios where companies are, only minority-owned firms are not self-performing, and they are just fronting for a larger white-owned firm. So the reason why I think that's valuable for this conversation, because in entrepreneurship, business is war. I'll just say it one more time. In entrepreneurship, business is war. So you have to presume your competitors have lower values than you. They will take different angles. And if no one's caught them, then they'll proceed if they can fall out of those, moral and then ethical filters, right? So people will live out in the swamp side of it very easy. So when you're building your company and you are launching launching a company and building it, there's lots of different types of animals out here, right? So the competitors are so to answer your question, not only have I seen it, I've stopped companies from getting certified. I've also had to take the fall, at least in one occasion, where where my bosses were influenced by a certain company, and so I had to kind of put my foot down that company wasn't certifiable, right? It wasn't eligible for certification. But it really depends on these supplier diversity programs and who the professionals are in it, how what their ethical and their moral fiber is, because you will see a lot of companies play games, and if you're not mindful of that, then you can be dazed and confused and depressed. Okay. But I don't want anyone to be dazed, confused, and depressed. I want you to have mental clarity. I want you to have tactical clarity, and I want you to have strategic vision. And those are not like those words mean something. It's not just like corporate speech. Like you really need strategic vision when you are out here and you're competing against other companies, whether they're Caucasian-owned companies or other companies that are like your own community or other communities. You've got to know all the angles so that you can navigate. And so the government is incentivized to, push up their numbers and their certification programs, but they're not necessarily incentivized that you get a contract from them or that. So you have to make sure that you understand each stakeholder and how the chessboard is put together. We always hear, it's chess, not checkers. But I always worry about when you say that, but are you actually playing chess, right? Do you actually look at the chessboard pieces? Like, and there's a lot of different. I took that question of maybe much further than you wanted it, but I have seen it, and I've had to stop it. I've had to put my career on the line in certain instances, but it wasn't any different than other lines of work that I've had to do where you had to, hold the line. So.
Well, I'm glad you took it further, because you can go somewhere where somebody might be thinking or not thinking of something even more importantly, and they say, oh, wow, I did not know. I'm a dual citizen in one of the countries. They actually have to have a citizen to be able to own property. And so in that scenario, you'll grab someone, and it would make sense to grab somebody from the West who understands certain strategies, because every country and every region of the world can be different. So I appreciate it. What do you think the number one misconception that entrepreneurs have when coming to you looking for help? And it might be my fault, because I tell people, you want to be rich, go over here. But what's the number one thing that you like people to kind of come to grasp with before coming to you looking for your expertise?
Okay, so that's a great question. So if I were to say the number one thing that I find challenging is whether the individual has really spent enough time thinking about whether they can be self-employed. Okay, so this before because so much of it is you can teach it, right? But the process of one individual becoming an entrepreneur, becoming self-employed, that process to me is an evolution. And not every employee can be self-employed. We know in entrepreneurs, there's a lot of self-employed people that cannot be an employee for certain, right? That's why we're in self-employment, because we just can't have someone dictating to us like that. But we're okay with customers dictating because they're paying, right? But but it's multiple customers. But what I find is that people come and they haven't really thought through of like, can I sell product? Can I sell a service? Can I put my time in and do the research? Will I actually do competitive research? Like it's the why of it that I find challenging, because in my line of work, it's really easy to do this job. It's so easy to do this job in a I'm just getting paid, right? I'm just sitting at the university. It's a comfortable, I can just talk a bunch of hot air at you. It's so easy. But to actually help small business owners and entrepreneurs and pre-entrepreneurs, I can only help you based on your ability how serious you are in each of those stages of growth. Because as a pre-entrepreneur, you're trying to figure out which products and services you have passion for, which ones you have skill set that comes from your work you have a hobby that you know a lot about. You spend hundreds of hours into a hobby that's monetizable, or you're part of a group of people who where you fit, and then what everyone's strengths are. So then as a team, you guys can go and capture customers, right? But it takes a little bit of like that internal psychological examination to say, not only do I want to do I want to launch a business, like incorporate it, grab a website, get business cards, like those marketing pieces of it, but I actually want to build the company. And I find that the people who are able to just, they've done that psychological work of like, I want to be self-employed. I want to go sell and close customers. I'll go talk with government officials. I'll go talk with, private customers. I will market myself. I'll put, I'll still, create a social media page because I actually am trying to reach out customers and prospects. I'm willing to understand my marketing funnel, my sales funnel, like all of that work comes from the why. Do you really, really want to build a business? Because that's not the exact same thing as having a hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone can develop a side hustle because it's just generating dollars on the side. And I really think that people should at first generate a side hustle, right? Get used to just making money from people, right? So like I love that people are using Cash App, right? I love that. I love that technology. Could you imagine having that technology in the 80s and the 90s? Like the amount of money when times were more discriminating, could you imagine what the economy would be for all kinds of communities when we had that kind of infrastructure? So why do you think the IRS wants to like crunch, they want to push down on, Cash App now? Why? Because money's being made, right? And so I don't have people having side hustles, several hustles. I have no problem with that, right? I love that. That's actually a great place to be, right? Because if you're working 2 jobs, you're working 1 job, working 3 jobs, and you have a side hustle, like this is someone who is now psychologically advancing themselves to becoming self-employed, right? Because you're learning how to bring money into your bank account. You're learning how to alternative paths of revenue. Anyone who's done that work, right, is on their way to entrepreneurship. And that's my leading frustration, is because in each of the stages, I need to work with people who are hungry and who are self-motivated, self-inspired, and are self-employing themselves, right? Because if I'm not working with someone who's done that work, then I'm just handing information, I'm handing knowledge, and it's not really going anywhere, right? You'll even see small business owners who have made money, and they're also like, if you've worked with small business owners, they get kind of tired and fatigued, and they get calloused, and they lose that hunger of being self-employed. Like I remember one company who told me, I don't want to grow anymore, right? We're good where we're at. The margins are fat, and we can just keep it at this stage. And I said, perfect, no problem, right? But that also means that I don't have to waste my time with you, right? Because you're good, right? We're not talking about growth, right? And if you're good with your book of clients and they're solid and they'll go for years and you're recession proof, beautiful, right? And there are some businesses like that where you can get this niche and you can get technical enough, or you can build a brand that's strong enough that you can ride that into the sunset or ride it as far as you can. So, but that self-employment hunger, like that, I don't know if I can teach that. I don't think people can teach it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like teaching ambition into your children.
Yes.
There are things that you can do to make them say you got to have a hunger, but to actually teach that fight, that dog that you got to get up every day. It's not everyone can do it. Not everyone's meant for it. And, not everybody will win in life, they say. And I have to tell myself that, because you get frustrated sometimes. We take the Dave Ramsey approach over here, where we kind of see ourselves as teachers. I'm not just going to do it. I'm going to teach you how and why I did it, so you know why it costs so much, is my explanation. But with that, and seeing so many businesses, and I know, you love working with people and you're a humble guy and you have, enough children and a wife to take care of, but have you ever considered putting it in a book, in your own podcast, YouTube, anything like that?
No, I haven't. There's not a lot of people like you, Kellen, who, would ask that question. So, most people are just afraid of me, and I make people insecure. I'm a threat just by walking into a room sometimes. So my brain is, I'm ready for battle. I'm not thinking that people want to hear this, right? So, but to your point, I attended the Valuetainment conference this last week. Patrick Bet David, and I actually went in. I chose not to network. I just kind of was just soaking it in. I just kind of walking around, and I was purposely not networking, right? So just walking around. So people are coming to me and asking, and I was shocked at a few moments where I'm like holding court, and like people are actually listening to what I'm saying, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this is stuff that just is just things that I've just learned along the way. And I think that elementary school teacher, I'm happy to pass information, because in entrepreneurship, information is cheap. If you put sweat equity, you can find the information. It's the execution that's the challenge, right? It's execution. That's execution in entrepreneurship. That execution is everything. It's the speed of execution. It's the quality of the execution. It's the like if you're punching, like how deep did you hit, right? So I'm like holding court, and I found like these 20 and 30-year-olds are just like absorbing what I'm saying, and I'm realizing, well, they watch YouTube and they're accustomed to, and TikToks and streams, like, so they're accustomed to just absorbing content, the Gen Z and the late millennials. So I don't know where that went, but I was shocked that people were actually listening to me, because I was like, oh, well, this and this, and then it's like quiet. I'm like, oh, okay, well, then they're just asking a question. So I've never thought about building content, but when you asked me to join you on the podcast, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, Kellen, you're a great guy. I'd be happy to share to your audience whatever you need them to know. So the answer is no.
Hello, everyone. Come along with London and Sydney as they show you around the vibrant country of Cameroon. We explore the heart of Africa through the eyes of London and Sydney. Two explorers who journey across the great city of Yaoundé, exploring its rich culture, vibrant market squares, cultural heritage, and wildlife. With giggles and excitement, London and Sydney Explore Cameroon takes you on a fun-filled adventure, providing insight into the country's culture and traditions through the pages of this book. It's packed with exciting stories and super cool facts about Cameroon that will make you go, wow. Get your copy now, available on Amazon and in libraries near you. There's only one easy way to experience the exploration of Cameroon, and it's through London and Sydney. Don't wait, get yours.
Well, you guys, you might have seen an advertisement for our London and Sydney book. In between that, not always sure where it gets placed. But one thing I will say is we're going to push JJ to write a book, even if he's writing it for children or even his children, because you think about the wisdom that you have. And what I do as a morbid sometimes thinker, I say, well, every day is a blessing. Like today, if we get to finish it, is a blessing. What did I leave behind for my kids so they fully know me, so they fully understand how this world works, as much as you can tell them at, these vulnerable ages. And so I would say, when you think about it, it's like the hieroglyphics on the Egyptians' robe. We're leaving something, and it doesn't matter how big it gets. The same way that this podcast, I'd love it to be Joe Rogan numbers, and I'd love that Joe Rogan check if I'm making a difference.
Right on.
But if I don't get that, I still, if I can get one of you, two of you, 10 of you, 1,000 of you to go research and go contact Apex Accelerators, your SBA, and, really tap in, because it's going to save you some time and money. Now, JJ, we're here in South Florida, where we have, it's the California of the East Coast and South, where everything is beautiful. You can buy everything from your body to your Bentley, and you can't afford any of it. What do you see, or how are you in place to let entrepreneurs know about their, savings and investments? I've never had, I think, an Apex Accelerator tell me get a defined benefit plan. Is that something that you guys can help with if someone doesn't know money, especially how to save it and invest it?
So we don't generally move in that direction. So when entrepreneurs come to us, The general framework is, help them through a business plan. And so in the business plan, there is a financial plan, but it's very specific to the business, right? And when people come to us, small business owners and entrepreneurs come to us for financing, and they're like, can you help us figure out how to get financing for our company? Then we'll still ask for their financial statements. In those conversations with our capital access specialists, which is basically our financing colleagues, your personal finances come into that conversation, and depending on the specialty of the consultant, you might hear them talk about like how are you handling your personal finances, but it's very confidential, very case specific. We generally, because we do take notes, we probably leave that out of the notes because it's personal. But there's a lot of like personal counseling that goes on that, because when we're the small business center and the Apex Accelerator, like, because you're working with some people for a length of time, those conversations naturally go personal. So the way we're structured, our protocols, we're not allowed to give you referrals because we're taxpayer funded. And so there's liabilities if we're saying, okay, we'll go with Callan or go with this financial planner. But so many of us have run businesses or have been in corporate America. And so these topics come up, and we'll either ask you questions. The idea is for you to kind of think through your entire plate. And so some of that is personal. I am surprised how much personal coaching and life coaching has gone alongside of my business coaching and my government contract consulting. I did not anticipate that. But you get to know people, especially the ones who kind of do, weekly meetings or bi-weekly meetings or monthly or quarterly. So the answer to your question is like, no, we don't in a structured way do that, but it comes up. And so then we will have those conversations with you because, financial planners are salespeople by nature. So 80 to 90% of financial planners are salespeople. So they're selling product, and that doesn't make them bad, but you're the one who's supposed to do your own financial planning, especially if you're an entrepreneur or business owner. You're doing the financial planning, and then you're bringing a sales leader or salesperson in the financial industry to bring their products to you and to see if those costs are not too much. And then if you're working with a CPA or a bookkeeper, and then a financial planner, a financial consultant, or a wealth manager, and you're bringing these assets onto your chessboard, you definitely, that matters because you are, how much of the money in your company is going to be you're retaining in the company, your retained earnings line, and how much of it are you you're giving yourself in salary. Because a lot of entrepreneurs, right, you're not working for corporate America. So financial planning is critical because you are building your own retirement nest egg. Well, so many small business owners do not do that at all. And the vast majority of successful small business owners, what they do is when they realize that they didn't put enough money away for retirement because they're the sole operator or they running a small business, they can barely kind of give benefits to their own employees, right? And they're having a hard time retaining their own employees who want bigger and better benefits. So then even for themselves, they haven't put things together. A lot of them are depending, and this is what breaks my heart a little bit, is at that stage, we have a ton, like with the baby boomers who are running small businesses, so many of them are going to be selling their businesses, and then it's happening now over the next 10 years. They're just getting tired. They want to exit. And so they're depending on that liquidity event of selling the business as their retirement nest egg, because they might have a Roth, they might have put some money aside, but a lot of them will actually be depending on that liquidity event, right? So then if you haven't been working with a solid financial planner who's both sales and consultative, and then you've got all this money coming down, and now you're wrestling with the business broker in terms of selling your company, because you're dependent on that liquidity event to be able to ride in the sunset. As much as I worry about my pre-entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs and small business owners, it's the exiting small business owners also, like I think they're a whole group of these constituency of people in this country who, should have done some serious financial planning. The SBDC, like that's outside of our scope. But as you can tell, like I'm paying attention to small businesses because I've been working with them for so many. So if you're working with me, I'm late. Apex Accelerator is government contracting and technology commercialization. But as I'm working with you, these kind of conversations come up and you can hear the script, and I'm like that I would be saying in a private conversation. Like you can tell, like what I'm saying is what you can tell that I've said it before, right? And so I hope that gives you a sense of the structure of the program isn't built that way, but it's also built so that we can have those private conversations and that they're confidential. Because a lot of what the SBDC does around the country is we're like business therapists. I didn't anticipate, like I went to school for education. I didn't go to school for psychology, right? But working with small business owners is a lot of psychology. And so, because I'm trying to get you I'm selling you on you. Like I want you to believe in your own growth. I want you to believe in your own plan for yourself, which also includes your financial plan, which also includes a financial plan for your company. So there's personal planning, financial planning, the wealth management, all those pieces matter. And so someone like myself who I'm playing defense for small business owners privately. You can see that the topic matters, but I don't have the resources and I'm not allowed to refer, which is so frustrating for me. But, it is, but what I can do is I will coach people to just think about it and then go research it, right? And build enough emotional cachet that they realize, oh, I should work on this like in the next 30 days or 90 days, right? So.
Well, we have a program, and I'm glad you mentioned that. We have a website, not much on it yet, but we're working on it. But it's fully fund your 401k.com, y'all. You check that out because what we're seeing is, just everybody's an entrepreneur, especially after COVID.
Yes.
But when you don't even know about mutual funds or the traditional ways of investing that have allowed teachers to invest as millionaires, we know that we could be in for trouble. And this is across all communities in America. We're making money, we're looking good, especially again in South Florida. Top down is on the car. If you're lucky to have one of those, what a blessing that is.
Yes.
Let me take a ride or I'll wash it for you one day. I don't have a convertible yet, but people aren't ready for when you're 80, 90, and I've gone into the poor group nursing homes, and I've gone into the ones that cost $15,000 and up per month. Yeah. There's a big difference, and I know I don't want to be at any of them, but I'm gonna be healthy like this, jumping in the pool forever until I'm out of here. But our AI until I'm AI, and then I'm just a box, right? But I love that you're doing what you can. And again, there's certain things you can and can't do. Yes. You do, though, refer certifications. I want to, talk about one before I tell everybody to go bother you. 8A, I've had it before. It's a lot of paperwork. After you get 8A, people say, hey, get on the GSA schedule. I didn't do that because I was kind of told you're going to need 2 different type of books. And honestly, it's easier to get private work than doing this dance. When the government wants me, they call me. That's typically how it is. I'm the wolf in Pulp Fiction. I want to know, though, you're telling people get certified. Certifications, you got to work them. You got to know what you got to do, and you have to have a good business. Is certifications for everybody or majority of people, I should say, because it's not easy sometimes, especially 8A. And you might not get picked, honestly. Government contracting is not for everybody, unfortunately or fortunately. What is your opinion on 8A certifications, GSA schedule? And if I got any of that wrong, please let me know.
You did perfectly. So I when I do that, so when people ask me about this, I actually lay a map of it, and I realized when I do it visually, it makes a lot more sense. Maybe on a future call, I can show you that map. But if I were to lay it out verbally, there's there's private certification, and we're specifically talking about certification for protected classes, right? So minority, or so race and gender programs, supplier diversity programs, and then you have like the the small business certification, which is not race or gender, it's just for the small business. So so across that, so in the private sector, you have what I mentioned, the Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council, the NMSDC, right? So this is the NMSDC is after the National Urban League. The NMSDC is like the next economic development organization for the country. So when we think of the Urban League, we think of the NAACP, we think of the Urban League. The third one that people are not as familiar with unless you're in business is the NMSDC. They are providing certification for companies for the private sector. So what do I mean? So when I was certifying companies under the NMSDC or the Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council, I was certifying companies so they could go after corporate America's supplier diversity programs. Corporate America. So corporate America, the Fortune 100, the Fortune 200, the Fortune 500, well, it's Forbes 500. So these companies, some of them realize that they want to have a stronger public relations brand within the Black community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, and Native American communities, right? So what they will do is they will task their supplier diversity officers to source companies within those communities. So for the private sector, the NMSDC handles all of that. There's one MBE certification for the private sector. So whether you're working with Johnson & Johnson, CVS, Walgreens, Ford Motor, General Motors, all of these corporate titans, all of them will have supplier diversity officers, and some of them are serious, okay? Some of them are just, Kellen, you and I just talk straight. So the reality is that not every corporate supplier development officer, diversity officer is, there for all the same reasons. I mean, no degradation there. So you have to figure out, each company has a supplier diversity office. And then if you see that specific company as a company that you want to work with, to contract with, and you can see that they're actually making moves in your community, and they're getting awards, so to speak, for supplier diversity, then you'll want to target them and then choose whether you want to be MBE certified, right? So there's for women, there's a completely different association, which is called WeBank. It's just like the NMSDC, but it's for women-owned companies around the country. And they also have local offices. So I know you asked about 8A and the GSA. So, but I started with the private sector, because then when we move over to the public sector, there's no one organization that handles all of it. So now you have, on the public sector side, it depends, like I said, how it depends in corporate America, it depends on the company. In the public sector, it depends on the agency, okay? So the federal, so I say there's three layers of the cake. There's the local government, so cities, villages, towns, school districts, and then counties. And then you have like the state level, so you'll have like departments of transportation, you'll have universities that are state universities. And then above that, you have the federal government. And so those are the three layers of the cake. So the certifications that you refer to fall into the federal government, the top end of the cake. And what's beautiful about this is the government is so massive and it's spending so much. So it could be a target-rich area, could be a target-rich area for your company. But you got to work through the research to figure out whether it's actually target-rich. But if we're just speaking about certifications, the federal government has the 8A certification, which has a 9-year window for a small business owner. And the 8A has what we call set-asides. So that means that when a federal contract officer puts out a solicitation and they set it aside for 8A companies, it means that anybody can bid on it, but 8A companies are definitely going to get the only attention. So anybody who's bidding on it who's not 8A, they're wasting their time because it's an 8A set aside. And so 8A companies can go after that solicitation. So if anyone gets the 8A certification, like it is set aside specifically, it is the federal government small business program, and it's only for 9 years. It's a 9-year window, and they tie it to your social security number so that so once you run one company through it, a small business, and then you try to run another company, they're not going to let you because they tie it to your social security number, because it's to basically the federal government's version of like their own small business program. And they're making their federal contracting officers put set-asides on specific solicitations for 8A companies. And then once you went through that program and you used up your time, then the federal government views that as you've learned about small business within the 8A procurement. Now, should everyone who's building a company get 8A certified? I don't think so. I always tell people, please work with me or go on sam.gov, which is the federal government's unified procurement portal, and just start searching for solicitations that fall into your grasp, like products and services and offerings that you can provide. First of all, if you even see solicitations that match you, that's one. And then if you search by 8A certified set-asides, that's two, right? Then wow, there's a lot of activity in terms of 8A certified solicitations. There's a lot of activity, okay? That's not the entire story, but just for as simple as I can make it, the federal government has the 8A certification, the hub zone certification. They have what we call the WOSB, the woman-owned small business. That's the federal certification for women-owned firms. On the private side, you'll notice I talked about the WBE. That's for the private sector nationally. But the WOSB, that is for the federal government when they're putting procurement, and they will do set-asides for women-owned firms, right? But before you jump into the paperwork, I'm always asking people, let's do the market research first. Let's do the procurement research to see what's in there, right? So, and I do this a lot, and I find that people get very anxious because they've been pushed to get certified, and then the money is dangling, and they just feel like they have to get certified. Like the anxiety has been built up into people, that FOMO has been built up, so that they go and get certified, and then the average 8A company wastes between 5 and 7 years of their 9-year window before they actually win work on average. I'll have to check my source on that, but it's not great. There's a lot of companies that get 8A certified, and it's out of all the certifications, it's the creme de la creme of small business programs. So I ask people to maybe save it for last. If you haven't fully launched and fully built your company, like if you don't have private customers, and you haven't reached that $250,000 mark in revenue, I would encourage people to save the 8A till later, right? Because once you hit that window, right, you have to market your 8A certification, and you have to know the players, and you have to know which prime bidders and prime contractors, the tier 1s, the tier 2s, and tier 3s in the federal market who are actually searching 8As, right? So it's ugly. It's absolutely ugly, but it's an amazing opportunity, right? So I can sell it to you, and I can also be very straightforward on it, right? Does that mean I know everything? No, but it just means that I've seen enough blood in the water, and I would rather you be the one eating instead of you being eaten.
I thank you for putting, that $250,000 mark, because after you get it, again, I've been told by some elders who do millions of dollars with the same NICS codes that we have, Kellen, you need to be here in DC at least once or twice a week. And we fly in from a different state. And I said, wow, just so they can work everything. So you have to
So
have money for that market.
yeah, so I agree with that person, right? So
Mhm.
so Kellen, for you specifically, in terms of your financial planning for your company, if you're going into the federal market and you're positioned well, and there's enough solicitations that you're working with your Apex consultant on figuring out where the lay of the land is, then DC is such a insular market. It's so insular that anyone in the federal market, uh, if they don't consider visiting DC and doing a little bit of business development on a yearly basis, it might be a mistake. I want to just be very careful. Might, right? It's all about how you operate as a marketer, how you operate as a business developer, and whether your products have great pricing. And so DC might be a destination for some companies in terms of their business development. Some people are so good at business capture that they don't have to go into business into that. They've just got enough. Their network is rich enough where their referrals are strong enough that visiting DC is necessary because they've got enough work that they have built up, and they've built what we call they've got enough performance built up that they get those calls, and so I've got companies that do not go into DC Metroplex to do networking because they network. I've got veterans who go to veteran networking events. I have minority-owned firms who attend the Florida State Minority Supplier Development Council, so they know their region. I've got a lot of companies who are networking with government officials, right? So networking is irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable. But that advice was not bad advice. It's good advice. Because if perchance they have your same NAICS codes and they're telling you that, well, we're winning work and we visit DC, you have to take that advice seriously, right? Because for some reason they're helping you, because usually people just keep those cards to the chest.
Yes. And that's why, you guys, if you're in this area, you're doing yourself a disservice if you do not go get with JJ. Talk to him virtually. It's so easy to do because he's going to give you real advice. I'm not going to give you everything. I could go do a Joe Rogan podcast. I could go 3 hours, but he has other people he needs to talk to.
Yes.
I do want to ask you though about your thoughts, because I just got a mail. You always get these mails. Hey, we can do this for you. It's only $99. And you find out that it's free, even when you register with, sam.gov. But I just got one for the, we call it that beneficial ownership information report we all had to do this year. And it was a company saying, oh, we can do this for you. They make it seem like, they're almost government, but then in the bottom, they say they're not. Can you talk about getting with you with these certifications and not having to pay a third party? Anything else we can look at that you've seen in scams of people trying to be, Apex Accelerators? Just so we can maybe safeguard some people from, messing up.
Yeah, so my Apex Accelerator colleagues statewide, they've got a diversity of opinions on this. So I will be speaking for myself. I mean, I've been primarily speaking on my own views on this, but just for this specifically, I want to make sure that I have a very unique view here. So I'm going to name drop people like Dr. Kizzy on YouTube, Eric Coffey. So there are some influencers out here that if you're just catching their names on YouTube, do that. So there's no cost. You're just watching their content. And if they're motivating you and you're learning from them on government contracting, I would, all you have to do is go on YouTube and just click them. Okay. Because there's only two people on staff. It's me and another colleague. You might not be able to get me, as quickly, because it's still, I'm available to everyone. Right. So I would encourage people not to wait on me, build your company. And then when you get on my calendar and we meet, we can have very rich conversations that are beneficial and productive for you, because you're already coming in because you already know some things. And my most productive conversations is when people actually know some things already, right? and I love it because people realize that I'm not insecure, that they might know something about government contract that I don't. And I don't like, I literally don't care, because I'm going to learn from you. I'm going to now go find something else in government I don't know, because there's all these little nooks and crannies that every industry, every sector, every product, attack, like it's so expansive. Like it would take me another 30 years to understand everything in government contracting. I've got books stacked in terms of everything I needed to know, right? And so just let me know if I'm falling away from the question. So I would encourage people to Eric Coffee. I'm not recommending them. I'm just saying you have the ability at your fingertips to go after YouTubers out there and TikTokers and who know government contracting and just sponge, right? Some of that stuff is half-assed, some of it's not true, but you know, we're in 2024. Most people are savvy that you can kind of pick up when, you know, you're being sold and conned, you know, I would hope, right? And Eric, I think somebody like Dr. Kizzy and Eric Coffey are amongst a couple of YouTubers that really put out some good information. Why am I mentioning their names? Because I sometimes train myself on their content. Okay. I've mentioned to you, Kellen, Jennifer Schaus. This lady is in DC and she's been in government sales and government capture for years. She literally gives like free content on government contracting for free. I mean, on all segments of the federal government specifically. And I'm more of a local government contractor, but on federal government contracting, I'm learning from her content, right? You could sign up for Govology. I'll put it in the chat. I don't know if anyone can see the chat. Let's see here.
But we can definitely put the links in the
So put Govology, like most of the trainings, like you could sit there on 8A certification, spend like $75 to $150 on one seminar on 8A certification. Or we didn't even mention HubZone. Like you can learn about HubZone. She does Govology has seminars on proposal writing. So you could like hone in and purchase some really great training out there. And so what's the point of this, right? The point of this is learn. You definitely can utilize us. We're here to support you. You can learn yourself and really gain quite a bit of insight.
You guys have
Did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You guys have got enough game that you can either get started or continue to go and grow. And if you're here in, the Palm Beach area, make sure you'll see in the description, Apex Accelerators, go book your time. It's not always easy. It's easier sometimes to get like, Beyonce and Jay-Z to come to a dinner party than it is to get JJ, depending on the season. So that's how you'll be honored to be able to get with him. He'll give you the game. He'll answer the questions we haven't, so you can make some more money. JJ, I thank you for coming on. Any last words and best ways to contact you?
Yeah, so last words is, so if you're a pre-entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, you definitely can work with a small business development center. My colleagues at FAU, they're spread around the Broward County. FAU has a presence in Broward and Palm Beach. So we have consultants in both Palm Beach and Broward because that's who we're serving. My particular region serves Broward and Palm Beach, but then we have another SBDC, an Apex Accelerator in Miami. We have another SBDC at Indian River State College and throughout the state. And so wherever you're located in this country, there is an SBDC and most likely an Apex Accelerator. So I certainly, if you're in the Palm Beach or Broward area, we'll be happy. Again, if you're a pre-entrepreneur or entrepreneur building out your company, my SBDC colleagues can definitely help you. If you have built a company, you actually have a small business, you've got customers, and you've got products that you're sourcing, then you might be very well eligible for the Apex Accelerator and to work with us as you are positioning your company for government contracting in the federal, state, and or local arena. And or if you're doing R&D and you want to commercialize your technology in your company and you're looking for specific R&D from the government on your technology, then I've got a colleague who assists with that type of funding. Okay.
You guys have got it. I thank you for coming, experiencing it to the end, no matter if you were watching. I know the majority of you are listening, but let those numbers kick up on the watch. We thank you for commenting. We thank you for emailing, asking questions, liking, but most importantly, we thank you for sharing this game with somebody. It will change their life. You guys be blessed.
Are you tired of the rat race in America? Are you ready to visit the motherland to relax and rejuvenate? Are you ready to explore all that Africa has to offer? Then check out the brand new Diversified Game Academy course, Prepare for My First Trip to Africa. Are you worried about being able to afford the trip? We got you. We will show you how to travel either on a budget or as a baller. Learn how to stress the value of the USD. Did you know that 100 United States dollars is worth over 1,000 South African rand, or 10,000 Kenyan shillings, or 54,250 West African CFA? Are you worried about taking your kids? Get the game from Kellen Cash, a bona fide world traveler, having traveled to almost 20 countries, several of those in Africa. Get the game on taking your kids on their first trips. Learn how to find the best tickets, get the visas, and plan your own adventures in Africa. Don't let Eddie Murphy have all the fun. Plan your own coming to Africa trip starring you, produced by you, and featuring you. If you are ready for a life-changing experience, sign up for our course today, Diversified Game Academy. Get prepared and purchase at diversifiedgame.com.